Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy, and you're going to get a lot of morning voice because I want to do this video so that I can shuffle this deck. So this is the Rana George Lenormand by Rana George with the artwork by Callie L. French. So I have the Enchanted Lenormand, or is that what it's called? I just have the cards and I don't think about what it's called anymore. Yeah, the Enchanted Lenormand. And I love it, but there's a key problem with it in that it's hard to shuffle. So this is the Enchanted Lenormand, and I really do love it. I love the images, but the cardstock is quite thick and cardboardy, and for that small and that thin of a deck, you know, it was only 36 cards. It just is really hard to shuffle. It doesn't shuffle well. And as you can see here, it also chips easily with all of the overhand shuffling that then needs to occur. So I wish they would bring this out in a more shuffleable cardstock. And maybe people who have stronger hands than I do would have less of an issue with this deck. But there it is. I love it, but the cardstock is an obstacle. So for quite some time I've been looking for, and I can even pop this open. It's magnetic closure there, but there's a flaw here, you know, so it's a beautiful box, but this is truly problematic. And now I'm not going to glue it and try to fix it. I'm going to eject the box because it has two wells like this, which is a form of keeping cards that I've never particularly liked. I understand why they do it. You know, for economy of space, etc. But yeah. So this has what I would call who knows, maybe I'll end up, I haven't shuffled this yet. I've looked through it and I've read through the book. It's the wonderful thing about Lenormands is if they have a book like this, it's really easy to read through them. And so I was just going to look on edge what the difference of the cardstock is. And it's kind of hard to tell how thick this is, because then this also looks thick. So let me see. I don't know, maybe this will give me some trouble also, but we'll see. We will see momentarily, but that's why I've been looking for another Lenormand, because I really do love using Lenormand. But problems with the Enchanted in terms of shuffling. Hopefully I won't have that problem with this deck, because I also like this deck. And I don't want to be shopping anymore. I don't want to shop for any more Lenormand decks. Because I've seen the vast majority of them, and there's always something that's amiss. And I'm not going to say this one is perfect either, but I really like it. So this has, I'm not sure how much you can tell, but there's gilding kind of in the framework and around this card and in the numbers. And Rana George is Lebanese. I mean, she may be, I don't know when she moved to either, I don't know if she's living in the United States or Canada or what her nationality is at present, but she spent a chunk of her life in Lebanon. And so you have, I'm assuming these are Arabic scripts here, and the Roman numerals over here. This frame doesn't bother me. I could also show you the size difference. And you know, I don't know what a quote-unquote standard Lenormand is, but this is pretty small. This is a little bit taller and wider. This strikes me as, I don't know, where's my bicycle deck? Let me just get it. It's probably not far. But it is in a drawer that I can't get open without moving other things, so we won't do that. Anyway, this is, I think, more classic Lenormand size, quite small. And this might be closer to a normal playing card size here. So I'm kind of surprised that I don't see see people mentioning this deck among their collections more often. I think it came out in 2017. Yeah, copyright is 2017. I don't need to show you that, right? So let's do a walkthrough, and then I'll show you the guidebook, which is interesting. I get the impression from examples she provides in here that she does kind of a more intuitive reading of Lenormand than the literal sort of grammatical reading. So I like her cards appear because the people cards, the court cards that appear in Lenormand, have character. They're not just a flat card, so they're really fun to look at the character of the court cards that appear. So, if my camera will, and these all have, well, not all of them really, but a lot of them have really specific associations to Lebanon and its history, which, you know, don't you know, they don't necessarily impact the reading. The meanings are relatively traditional, except that she does add some cards. The ship, if my webcam will focus, is intended to be a Phoenician ship. A very elaborate estate here. And so there is one of the court cards, and you'll see how they change. A beautiful cedar of Lebanon. I love the deep shade in that card. In your clouds card, and there's another court card there. You've got the dark side and the light side. I think this is a great snake. Just the way it's approaching. Look at that court card. Love it. The coffin. A very orderly bouquet, and a very sort of kind of a maiden, but sort of a matronly looking maiden, a proper looking maiden. The scythe. And so the scythe definitely has a direction. And there again is the court card. The whip and the broom. I love the birds because they seem to be having such an intense conversation. And, you know, some bird cards just show birds, you know, not necessarily with their mouth open. The child card. Playing marbles. The fox in an alleyway. And so this, you know, we would normally think, what is a fox doing in the middle of the city like that? And so this is one of the cards where the image makes more sense if you read the book, which talks about some kind of story or folk tale that she grew up with about a fox in a city environment. And the bear. And I guess this is the harbor of Beirut. Anyway, very sparkly stars. This is the star card. The stork. The court card. This is also a landmark that she grew up with. And has some institutional significance. You know, I look at this and just think of it as a lighthouse, but again, in her description, you see that it does have more institutional significance than simply a lighthouse. And this is the garden. If it would focus. Why don't you want to focus on the garden? Garden is, there we go. It's very beautiful. I love this mountain. I love the imposing look of it. Sometimes for the mountain card, they show this little thing that's easily gotten around. And that has been a stopper in some decks that I've looked at. And it's like, that's not a mountain. That's not much of an obstacle. This is a formidable mountain. This crossroads card, you know, there's the basic crossroads, but there's a lot of paths here. There's some that go underground, and there's some that are like tunnels here, and one kind of goes through the building and seems to come out the other side. So it's a very intricate, and I love the woman the queen that's associated with it. So really neat. The mice. I know that the elaborate border would stop a lot of people from this, and maybe the elaborate look of this card, but I like it. And look at the nice man there. And the sweet little heart box. And the ring. One of the nice things I think about this deck is even though many of these cards, like she talks about how much she loves these kind of book holders, and that I think this is supposed to be representing one that she has, that it's, for the most part, it's not necessary. It doesn't get so personal that you can't get the cards. They're still your basic Lenormand cards with a little added, I don't know, interest, I suppose I would call it. I wouldn't even necessarily call it depth, just some added interest if you read what's in the book. And again, it's nice that, you know, the face isn't flat. It's not a really flat man. I mean, I guess his face is a little flat. Can we focus webcam? Come on, this one even has a face. We should be able to focus on that. Yeah. But I don't know. He's just a really handsome guy. There are 2 man cards and 2 women cards. And as you can see, the man is much more contemporary than this person. And to me, that's a little jarring. I would have preferred if it was, you know, a man still from this sort of period, or I don't know if this absolutely is a matter of period, or, you know, interior, exterior, but, you know, leisure, business. But I don't know. I guess I would have just preferred them to be slightly more similar and not so stark a contrast. If they're in the same reading, you know, who's going to claim to be this and who's going to claim to be that, you know. Yeah, so I'm leaving this out because I'm not going to use this man card unless absolutely pressed to do so. And a lovely woman card. And, you know, this is also a lovely woman card and also very casual, but this is more clearly modern. She almost strikes me with this pose as being a model, as opposed to just an everyday woman. More like the man struck me as being more like an everyday man. So, yep, I'm taking that out and only using it if need be. And really, although I would do certainly Lenormand's for others, I mainly use Lenormand just for myself. I don't know why, but I have read for clients using Lenormand and gotten good, interesting readings out of it. Very helpful readings. But it's I just don't think to do it that much, and I'm just not reading for others very much anymore, so I just got this mainly for me. Again, love the man in this card, the court card. I do have some warm tea here, trying to limber up my vocal cords for the day. And again, this structure is related to Lebanon. But I love this sun card because it's a really powerful sun. And sometimes the suns in Lenormand's are like this weak thing in the background. It's kind of strange. Now, some people might have a problem with this moon card in that it's not a full moon, it's just a sickle moon. I like this, the reflection in the water. This, she talks a lot about the pattern on the key, you know, the sacred geometry on the key. But for most of us, it's just a key card. Some of her meanings are slightly different than what I get in the Enchanted Lenormand. And the Enchanted Lenormand has a pretty substantial book, and it's a really great deck for learning, but it does have some slightly different cards and different meanings from how she has interpreted. Like, to me, she interprets the fish just a little bit differently. Doesn't mean that I have to. I could easily apply the meaning that I've already learned through the Enchanted Lenormand to this, but there's a slightly different emphasis or nuance to it. The anchor. And the cross, very beautiful cross. So then she has 4 cards that she has added to the deck. And that was true in the Enchanted Lenormand. They added I don't know if they call it a gypsy card. Anyway, she's supposed to be a reader. tarot reader, card reader, psychic, whatever you want to say. So there was that one extra card, and it had an extra man card and an extra woman card that were even racially different skin color. But this one has the extra man and extra woman, which I think is appropriate. It makes total sense to me. I'm just pulling them out because I don't expect to need them for personal readings for me, and because I do find the modern aspect a little jarring. So she has this, excuse me, as one of her extra cards. And she, I guess, does mediumship. And so this is supposed to sort of represent the elements in general and just the spirit world, whatever's on the other side. And I don't jive with this at all. So, of course, I won't use it. Just this representation doesn't make any sense to me. Which, you know, I'm not a medium, so it wouldn't. And she has an incense card with what she calls the evil eye back here, which is kind of weird because to me an evil eye means that the eye itself is evil. But when I read in the book, this is actually a protective eye. So it's an eye that protects against evil, you know, maybe watches out for evil. The incense has the usual smoky meaning, which is cleansing the space. So if you were worried about a space, excuse me. For example, if I felt like there were things going on in my house that didn't make sense to me, you know, misfortune since moving into a place or something like that, these two cards could mean a cleansing of some bad spirit or something that's present, something like that. She has a bed for things intimate, romantic. It can also speak directly of sex. And she did this with this and the next card so that you're not having to, so that you have a card that is specifically for sex and intimacy instead of having it, you know, attached to the lily, for example. And then she has a separate work card, which she calls the marketplace, so that you don't have to associate it with, I don't know, in the Enchanted Lenormand, it's associated with the moon card and the fish card, in the sense that the fish is finances. So this takes some of that, like, off of the fish card also, as being about commerce. And the ship also in the Enchanted Lenormand was about commerce. So this takes that. So a total in number of 40 cards. And so now I'm going to shuffle. Oh, and did I show you the backs, or did you accidentally? Isn't that a beautiful back? The Hamsa and the quote-unquote evil eye. So I'm going to shuffle it a little bit, and I'll pull 3 cards. I don't know about what. Maybe I'll just let it tell me whatever it wants to tell me. I don't see people doing deck interviews with Lenormands. So this is still pretty darn stiff, but I can get a reasonable shuffle out of it. And it's stiff, but I think it'll it will soften up a little bit in time. And again, I have rather weak hands, so other people might not have such a difficult time with it. So I don't know if I should ask. When I was thinking about deck interview, I was thinking, I don't know if I should ask this deck about our future together. I could do that. But I was thinking I could also just pick 3 cards about today or whatever it thinks I need to know. One more riffle. Maybe 3 riffles. Let's give it some riffle. Whoops. I'm actually going to split it. So let's do the first 3 about our time together. Uh-oh. Well, there is uncertainty about whether I will do readings for others. And this might be suggesting that I do readings for others, maybe online. Or it could even be telling me that if I were to do this sort of thing online, it would be confusing. So if I take this to be the public, clouds public, and it looks to me like the clouds are coming in, that this it's not advising me to use it for public readings. Now this letter is actually quite a personal letter, so maybe it's advising that I just do personal readings, personal messages. And that's the way it looks. It looks like a building. So I kind of like that. It looks like, it looks like a building with different doorways, or like you're looking at a divided scene. So interesting. So let's just see. So I would explore this a little bit more if I were doing a serious reading. Let's just look, and then I'll pick some cards. So the writer, so this is just a general message for me. Bouquet, so maybe a message is coming about a house or a living situation. And since this has the aspect of a gift, I have somebody who cuts my yard. And he's been keeping an eye out for a set of steps that I could use to, I have a really steep bank down the back side of my property, and so there's an area, I don't know if it's about equal to the land that my house sits on, that's in the back, that's pretty much unusable to me because of that really steep bank. And so I wanted a way to access it, and so he has been looking for a set of steps. So this could be about that. I could easily see that he might be calling me to say that he's found something, or somebody is willing to sell something, and do I want it, that kind of thing. I could see that this being about that. So, what will we look at? Let's look at, I'm going to look at the bouquet, because I think she had some additional meanings to bouquet. And maybe we'll look at the garden. Actually, let's look at the writer, because that brings in the historical aspect quite a bit so that you can see the historical aspect. So the writer. So she has quotes. She starts with a description of the cards. I don't know if she always has two. Sometimes she has three. I don't know if she ever has one. Oftentimes, she will also end with a quote, but not always, and she didn't here. So she has a description and then quotes related to the meaning of the card. Then she has in a reading, so kind of the divinatory meaning, and then sample readings. So she has the context, the person's situation, the person's question, the cards, and then her interpretation. And then, further, this is yet another example. And she doesn't have the same amount of examples, and you know, the number of cards varies quite a bit, you know, for the different cards. But then she talks about why this is particular to her, to Lebanon, or to her personally. So here it says, during the early 20th century, Lebanon was part of the French colonial empire. That mandate lasted from 1920 to 1943. Today, Lebanon is trilingual and a heavy French influence is still widely apparent. French is widely spoken throughout Lebanon and is taught and used as a medium of education. My writer card is a French official coming to town on a formal mission. So there you go. So let's look at her description. Is just this: determined looking rider and horse are coming in from out of town for a special mission, or perhaps they are on their way to deliver an important message. Her quotes, in the quotes come from famous wise people or literary people, like this is Voltaire and Sophocles. But she also has something from the Disney's Frozen, you know, so she pulls her quotes from everywhere. In the case of news, we should always wait for the sacrament of confirmation. That's Voltaire. None loves the messenger who brings bad news. That's Sophocles. In a reading, the writer is about movement, news, information, delivery, something or someone coming or visiting. When the writer is in the last position in a reading, the movement is outward instead of inward. Whether the writer represents news or people, it is going out rather than in. Watch the position and the location of the writer. It can also be as simple as the messenger or a new person. So I'm going to read the sample readings here, a couple of them. So we have context. Samira had a fight with her boyfriend. She is torn between pleasing her family and her relationship with Fadi. Question: should I let him go? The cards: coffin, rider, ring, and heart. The answer: no, go after him. Make peace and fix it. This card combination screams reconciliation, and the writer is telling her to go after what her heart desires. Michael is waiting for a loan. What will happen? The rider in the cross. The answer: sorry, the feedback coming in is not in your favor. So yeah, let's look at the bouquet. And let me take a drink. So, an antique Phoenician vase, holds a beautiful bouquet of bright red poppies and fresh white daisies. Then we have two quotes. Flowers are a proud assertion that array of beauty outvalues all the utilities of the world. Earth laughs in flowers. That is Ralph Waldo Emerson. Personal beauty is a greater recommendation than any letter. Aristotle. So in a reading, the bouquet delivers happiness, joy, bliss, satisfaction, and gratification. It is also all about beauty, allure, and glamour. The bouquet is a gift, award, present, charity, or a favor. It can also be simply talking about beauty supplies or art items. The bouquet is the thank you and the blessing card. So there you go. I'll give you one of the readings here. Suha is bringing her boyfriend to meet her parents. How will they react to him? Lilies, birds, mice, and bouquet. The answer, they will have a few negative comments, but they will like him and give their blessing. So there, it's giving a blessing. Now, I have no reason for anybody to bless my house, to come to my house and bless it. Anything of that sort. That's why I interpreted this as something, him bringing something that would make me happy, that had to do with my house. Let's see. And then her description of her own association with the items in this card. I told Callie, who is the artist, that I grew up playing in fields of deep red copeaux, which are poppies, and marguerites, which are daisies, and that I used to pick them as a child. So Callie picked a beautiful bouquet of those two flowers and arranged them in an ancient Phoenician vase. This gorgeous combination reminds me of the bouquet I used to make for my mom when I was a small girl. So again, it doesn't really change the meaning of the card. It just shows her personal connection and why these items were chosen. So there you go. A sort of prolonged look at the Rana George Lenormand by Rana George and artwork by Callie L. French. So I'm very happy with my purchase. And yeah, hopefully this is the end of my Lenormand shopping. I just don't need to be thinking about it right now. But it also gives me an easy deck to pull and do a spread with. So if I randomly shuffle a little bit here. So even with my small, so I'm thinking of the grand tableau now, after I said that I was finished. You know, obviously this will take up a little bit more space than the smaller Enchanted Lenormands. And it was a challenge to find a space to do a grand tableau with the Enchanted Lenormand. And I tended to do 4 rows, 9 columns without that little 4 thing. So now I've got 38 cards. So maybe there will either be 2 left over because I added the bed in the marketplace. So there will be maybe 2 left over at the bottom, I guess. Well, let me see what a 9, because another common Lenormand. Well, there's the clouds again. I guess I didn't shuffle very well. Yeah, it takes a little bit. I mean, I don't have very much space here. I don't know that I have an entire foot here. But there, it's nice since I have the clouds that I've got somebody coming in with a solution. Anyway, So there it is again. 9 cards are easy enough to do. Grand tableau. Grand tableau would have me wanting to trim off the borders on the side. And most cards you could actually trim off. I don't know if this will be true of all cards, but of the ones laid out here, it would be easy enough to trim off a little bit on the bottom as well. Am I inclined to do that? Nope. I will just be thinking about a bigger space in which to do, where, how I will do my Grand Lenormands, because I do like to do them. All right, and now I really am letting everybody go, calling it done. Thanks so much for stopping by. I would love to hear your thoughts on this deck. Even what you kind of look for in a Lenormand. And yeah, take care.